Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, everyone. Coach Steve here. We have another fantastic episode for you guys. We are into August now. The redraft season's on the way. Football started last week. There's going to be a lot more games this week. But we got to talk about some training camp stuff today. And we're going to talk about the first 5 rounds of your redraft league and where you're hopefully don't screw it up and end up with some of the better players that help you win a championship. Of course, we have Coach Tyler here today. Coach Tyler, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, guys? The Texans got screwed out of a win last week. Already starting the season hot, but excited to get into it. We're getting so close to drafts and getting into the season, so I'm excited.
Yeah, seeing the little Cam Akers action on the field was fun to see.
That little spin move was nice, huh?
It sure was. Coach Steve, other Coach Steve is not here. He'll be back hopefully next week. But we do have a fantastic guest on today's show. Colin, my friend, how are you? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches.
What's going on, guys? I was actually watching that game. It's disappointing when you're waiting for football for months and then the first preseason game gets rained out a couple quarters in. But that's typical, right? We can't have nice things. But I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys having me tonight.
Absolutely. So we're going to have a lot of fun tonight, guys. We're talking training camp and we're talking redraft. So we're going to get right into it. We're not going to waste any of your guys' time here. We're starting off at the top here. Obviously, this was came out, I think, maybe the day after we aired last Monday here. I think Justin Herbert, foot injury, in a walking boot for the next 2 weeks here, guys. Do you guys take this as a serious thing? Are you guys kind of in the middle right now? Justin Herbert's value is kind of already down this season with the offense that he's going to be being a part of. But, having a foot injury in a general sense definitely can't be a good thing there. So, Colin, since you're the guest, I'll let you kind of go first. Does this kind of knock you off from kind of taking Herbert in redraft right now?
Yeah, I mean, Herbert was one of my late round targets, which is, if you told me that last year, I'd be saying that in August of 2024. You'd have to hit me across the face. I wouldn't believe you. But injury prone. I mean, I don't like to throw that term around a lot, but Justin Herbert's missed a ton of time since entering the league, and it's never anything too serious. His finger. He actually came in for Tyrod Taylor a couple years ago for a freak accident, but ever since, Justin Herbert, his rookie season, has been banged up, and this is horrible. I mean, we want him on the field with a new regime, with new receivers, for lack of we don't have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams there anymore. So building that rapport with even Quentin Johnston, Joshua Palmer, Ladd McConkey, we want him out there, and sidelining it for 2-4 weeks, whatever it is, in a projected run-heavy offense. The vibes are bad around Justin Herbert right now, which could be a good thing. You might be able to get him super cheap. You might not even get drafted in 1 QB leagues at this point. So definitely something worth monitoring. I think it's overblown that he's not going to pass a ton this year. I think Jim Harbaugh knows what he has in Justin Herbert. I think they're going to be playing from behind a ton this year. So I'm still keeping an eye on Justin Herbert, but this isn't good news.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Tyler, how's your take on this?
Yeah, it doesn't really it doesn't move Herbert for me all that much. You look at, they're putting it at a timeline of about 2 weeks in that walking boot and then maybe another week coming back. But he's not going to play in the preseason, so he's really missing practice reps. And they've had, OTAs and the beginning part of this camp before this, I think they called it a plantar fascia injury.
Yes, they did.
Honestly, pretty common injury for most common humans, not outstanding star athletes. But I think this is something that he's going to be able to recover from, and it's going to take away practice reps, but also most of the receivers he's throwing to, he's had on that roster, at least outside of Ladd McConkey, the starting 3 that he would have there. And, the projection of the run-heavy offense, his foot doesn't need to work all that well to hand the ball off. So it doesn't move him all that much for me. I think he's going to recover and be fine. It's obviously scary when he pops up with a walking boot and there's no immediate explanation for it. But just the time of the preseason and where he's at, I think he's got enough time to recover and be perfectly healthy and fine by week 1. And this will just be a preseason scare.
Yeah, definitely. And he's definitely going to drop into the double digits of your redraft league at this point. I think he was around like 9th, 10th round. So I wouldn't be shocked if he kind of falls a little bit to like that 12, 13 round range there where, at that point, I think it's worth the risk at that point if you're looking for a steal at that position there. I mean, Herbert, when he's on the field, he's great. So, I mean, dynasty take Easton Sticks. You pick him up to trade him. You don't really want him on your team. Let's say that for real. You pick him up just so you could trade him to someone else. But if you're desperate for quarterback, he's not the backup answer who's going to come in and help you out. So just know that fact. If he's still out there on waivers,
I'm going to play the defense that's going up against Easton Stick each week.
That's even better. Yes, that's the move you really want to make. All right, moving over to wide receiver here. DeAndre Hopkins, knee injury, out 4 to 6 weeks initially. It still looked like they're hoping he's ready for week 1, but you don't really know. So, Colin, I'll let you kind of run the mic again on this. I don't know how high you were on Hopkins. I personally wasn't too high on him coming into the season already here. Does this kind of have you kind of avoiding him right now?
Yeah, you know what? I actually am higher than most on the Tennessee Titans offense, bringing in Callahan from the Cincinnati Bengals, bringing in Holtz, the pass game coordinator from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is going to be a very different Tennessee Titans team this year, pass heavy. They've done everything they can to put, Will Levis in a position to succeed, bolstering up that offensive line, going out and getting a pass catching running back in Tony Pollard, while also having Tyjae Spears, signing Calvin Ridley with DeAndre Hopkins, who they could have let DeAndre Hopkins go, if I'm not mistaken, or even tried to trade him. So I think a lot of people are actually lower on this offense going into the season. And as a result, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley were kind of in the same area of ADP. I don't know if they are as of today, but I was thinking about grabbing one of them. And, Calvin Ridley's a couple years younger, did sign the big deal. But DeAndre Hopkins is just a special talent. I don't think he's done yet. Led the league in air yards last year. He is a beast. But this might have made my decision for me, especially I have a draft this weekend. I have a draft in 2 weeks. Couple other drafts coming up here. So I'm hoping this actually doesn't raise Calvin Ridley too high because I'd still like to target him. But as far as DeAndre Hopkins goes, he should still get drafted, maybe drop him a round or two because they are saying he could be ready, as you have there, for week 1. But 31 years old, knee injury, they hold you out of the preseason with a new coach. Again, not a good look, but this is a experienced veteran. I think he'll be fine in the long run. You just might not start in week 1, as you may have been preparing to if you did draft him.
Yeah, of course. Coach Tyler, how do you feel on this?
Yeah, this. Just seeing his name pop up as like an actual injury and not just a Veterans Day rest just really gives me PTSD from his Arizona days. Because, it would be one small little injury and it would just continue to parlay into the next and the next until he missed, half the season nursing all these different injuries. And to Colin's point, he's 31, 32 years old. He's not a young buck anymore that's going to recover and come right back on the field. Like it might take him a little bit of time. And so, I have personally voiced I'm not overly high on the Titans, partially because of my Texans fandom and partially because there's not a lot there that excites me. But I just don't see a upside for D-Hop if the injuries are already starting. And if I'm choosing in that same tier between D-Hop and Calvin Ridley, I'd rather take Ridley and just hope that he learns to catch a ball in the end zone this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, for me, the big thing is like I wasn't expecting both Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins to be able to both have a successful season this year. They bring in Calvin Ridley for a reason to be the wide receiver 1. He's a few years younger on that note there and doesn't have the tread that DeAndre Hopkins kind of had for all these years in the league here. Having a knee injury already at his age, for me, I was already turned off. I probably won't touch him at all. it helps me want to have more Calvin Ridley at this point. That's for sure, because I feel like Calvin Ridley is going to see more targets in the offense now if DeAndre Hopkins is going to miss any time, or if it does linger, like Tyler just said. That's something that is concerning.
Yeah, I think they need to know about Will Levis sooner than later, which is kind of silly, heading into his second season. But I think they want to know, we're seeing recent trends of, even Jordan Love sitting a couple years. He played 10 games last year or something like that, or he played his first full season, I should say, and just got a massive contract. I don't think they want to play that game with Will Levis. I think they want to see what he's got right away. He's got the weapons, got a little bit better offensive line, but with quarterback being such a priority now, and a lot of these guys not getting that second contract, and rightfully so. It's a heavy investment. We're seeing these crazy contracts. I think they want to see what they have in Will Levis, like I said, sooner than later. And DeAndre Hopkins not being out there at any given time really does hurt Will Levis's value a little bit. But, maybe we could see Treylon Burks. I can't say that without laughing, but maybe we could see Treylon Burks finally seize the moment here in this new offense.
I'll see.
Who would you rather have?
Go ahead, Tyler.
Who would you rather have, Treylon Burks or Quentin Johnson?
Oh, man. You know what? I think I'd rather have Treylon Burks, just because the limited video I've seen of him this training camp has been somewhat encouraging. Nothing I've read or seen about Quentin Johnson has been good at all. I mean, facing the wrong way, dropping, just tough.
I was gonna say, I to be honest, I kind of like Tyler Boyd as a deep sleeper at the end of your roster. Now he's familiar with the offense. He's been in that offensive scheme to some extent before. He's 30 years old too, but I think he's 29, something like that. I mean, veteran presence on the team here. I couldn't imagine why he wouldn't get a lot of work if DeAndre Hopkins is not on.
Familiarity too with the head coach.
Right.
Again, Callahan came from Cincinnati, and so did Tyler Boyd. So there's a connection there.
So definitely would be interesting. Over to the next one. It's not injury related, but Jordan Addison charged with DUI, 2 misdemeanors. Came out today. Potential rumors of a 3-game suspension coming his way now, guys. How would you guys feel value-wise on Jordan Addison if he were to miss 3 games? Let's just start at 3 games here. How is your value for him going into season now, Colin?
Jordan Addison's a guy I really liked, actually. Kevin O'Connell, again, really pass-heavy offense. I don't think the departure of Kirk Cousins is going to change that. Obviously, with the emphasis of not only bringing in Sam Darnold, who's still young and, has been in this league for a while, good experience as a starter, but JJ McCarthy drafting him too. I think those two alone, just that package deal of whoever's going to be under center, is going to be a lot better than what we saw come in for Kirk Cousins last year. Jaron Hall, Joshua Dobbs, and even Nick Mullins. It was pretty sloppy. And yet Justin Jefferson still dominated even with those guys, still had 2 100-yard games in 5 games without Kirk Cousins. Jordan Addison did okay. I think what really helps Jordan Addison is the fact that TJ Hawkinson is a guy I don't expect to be ready right away. But October 7th is the appeal hearing. Who knows? I don't know if that gets pushed back or what the situation with that is. What he's going to do is either, plead guilty, not guilty. I'm not really sure what the process there is. I didn't read too much into it today, but that doesn't mean, whatever happens on that Monday, October 8th, the league says, all right, you're done for 3 games. This is a thing I think is going to carry into next year. Very similarly with Rashee Rice. I don't think either of these guys are going to miss time with their legal cases, in 2024. We saw that with Alvin Kamara too. If you remember, he got into a fight Pro Bowl weekend, 2021, I think, or I'm sorry, February of 2022. He didn't miss a single game in 2022. It was last year he missed the first 3 games. So I can't imagine Roger Goodell steps in and says, mid-season, these guys are going to miss time, but it could happen, I guess. I don't really recall any scenarios where that's happened before. So if some people seem to think that that's the case with Addison and his value drops, I'll take him if he's down in, double-digit rounds. Absolutely.
Coach Tyler, does this change any opinion for you, or?
It doesn't really change any opinion. I feel like Addison's value has dropped enough that I'm comfortable taking him even with the possibility of a 3-game suspension. I have the ADP for this season pulled up because we're going to get into that in a minute. But I'm looking at it, Rashee Rice, wide receiver 38 off the board, Jordan Addison 39 at like around the 94th overall pick in half PPR drafts. I'm very comfortable taking Jordan Addison at receiver 39 in a draft, especially, with the upside that he has. But if I factor in that possibility of 3 games, his value has dropped enough that 3 games isn't going to deter me enough off of any further fall.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, in round 9, I think at that point you can take a little risk. And they say wait to your double digit rounds to take that kind of risk. But at that point, this is a high power offense that are going to throw the ball a ton, whether or not they have an elite quarterback there behind center. Jordan Addison's going to get his work in the offense. And if he misses 3 games, he's going to miss 3 games. And he'll be back and hopefully, seeing 6 or 7 targets per game in the offense there. And I think, he's a little more steadier than some of the rookies that are like right behind him in ADP right now. There's so many rookies. Like there's 5 or 6 rookies are like literally in like the same grouping altogether because no one knows what to do with these rookies this season here because there's so many other potential players in front of them, or they're just not there yet in terms of their talent. So, but Jordan Addison, again, I'm not as high on Addison this year, but in this 9-10 round range, if you're going to be able to get him, then whether or not he's suspended or not, the value is definitely there. And then last but not least, going back to running back, before we get over to our main topics, Jonathan Brooks. Over the weekend, Coach Dave Canales said that he may or may not be ready until week 3 or 4 of the season, guys. So, hearing this, and if it actually goes down that road right now, does this kind of turn you off from taking, Jonathan Brooks in that 7th, 8th round range right now? So, Colin.
I already had that baked into his value.
Okay, good.
This is a guy that got hurt in the fall. It was really, really encouraging to see that he was the first running back taken in this draft and in the 2nd round, and to a new head coach that, we saw Rachaad White see a healthy dose of volume last year in Tampa Bay when Dave Canales was the offensive coordinator there. And he's already on record saying, we are going to be stubborn about how often we're going to run the ball in Carolina. You run to develop the passing game. And they need that with Bryce Young. They need a threat of some sort of run game here. So, while Jonathan Brooks may not take the field week 3, week 4, I already kind of factored that in, but I don't expect him to really start producing start-worthy fantasy numbers until even after that. So, I'm taking the approach of I like him. I'm not going to draft him with the expectation of, plugging him in early October as my RB2 or even RB1. But if I do take him, I am absolutely prioritizing Chuba Hubbard, who is a guy I think looked really good last year, and I think he's going to get more reps than Miles Sanders. We'll keep an eye on that. We see guys get cut late in August all the time, obviously when they have to make those cuts, but we could even see one of these guys get traded. I don't know who would take on that Miles Sanders contract, but I just thought Chuba Hubbard looked way better than Miles Sanders last year. So we'll keep an eye on these guys in the preseason. But if anyone's deterred by this Jonathan Brooks news, and he drops further, that's great news. But he's not a guy I'm really like targeting. I think Jonathan Brooks is a guy I'm really excited about for 2025. We'll see him in much higher rounds, I think.
No, absolutely, for sure. Coach Tyler.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't be, taking Brooks as my RB2, possibly not even my RB3 in drafts, but kind of like Colin, he's not a guy I'm targeting for this year, but if he falls into my lap in the right spot, I'm not going to be upset taking him, because I think everyone that understands these injuries understood that when he tore his ACL in, I think it was November, that he wasn't going to be ready for week 1. And if he was, it was going to be a less than 100% version of him that they were throwing out on the field. But when Canales was talking about him not being ready until possibly week 3 or 4, he was saying that they're going to be diligent to make sure that he comes back 100%. They obviously, the Panthers want to win games. I think they know they're not going to win a ton of games. So there's no point in leveraging, the knees of your potential star running back over the next 4 years for maybe a win or 2 more on a 4-win season. So I think if Jonathan Brooks is set to come back around that week 3-4 area, I'm okay taken him if he falls a little bit more. I mean, he's going as running back 31, so 2 before him, Nick Chubb and Devin Singletary, and then 2 after, Austin Eckler, Javonte Williams. If I know that I have to wait a couple weeks and then maybe a week or 2 for him to get ramped up, and then I get at least flex-worthy value out of Jonathan Brooks, I'll take him over unless Nick Chubb just comes back and is 100% by week 1 somehow. I'll take him over all of those guys. So he's a guy that I really like, also like Colin. He's a guy that I really like for 2025, and I don't have a ton of high expectations for this season, but you never know what could happen.
He's definitely going to continue to slip, especially off this news. So I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of drops to more of that 9-10 range.
I think you can also keep an eye on who drafts Jonathan Brooks. Panic does set in fantasy football, especially in redraft.
Sure.
When you lose those first 2-3 weeks, or you're 1-2, 1-3, that person has Jonathan Brooks on their roster and they're not happy about the return. They didn't prepare for him to be missing all this time. It's a guy I'd send a trade offer for, especially if you have more wins in your win column. He might be able to benefit you down the road.
Yeah. I mean, I really do believe that Brooks is more of a second half success for fantasy this year. Like, you have to assume that he's going to be RB 34 through first 8 games and not very useful. And then hopefully that second half where he's a top 24 RB at least for this Panthers team, whether or not how you believe they're good or not good they are. So, all right, let's get into some ADP talk, guys, here. We're going to start with round 1 here. ADP, in this first round, you have the CMC, CD Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Breece Hall, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Jamar Chase, St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Jahmyr Gibbs. So, Colin, I'll let you start first here. How do you like round 1 here? Is there a position that you prefer to draft from? Is there players you like here?
Yeah, I've actually been doing a series. I write for the site Fantrax, and I actually just released my 6th official mock draft today. I do mock draft Monday. So every week I draft from a different position. 6th mock draft, I drafted from the 6th overall pick. And the first pick today was Justin Jefferson, which, again, if you told me last year this time that I was going to get Justin Jefferson 6th overall next year, I'd say you're crazy. But I'd also probably say that Kirk Cousins is not a Minnesota Viking, and that is obviously true now. As far as position I've been targeting, it's been wide receiver, and that's, you guys obviously don't know me as well as my home league does, but that is very unlike me. I am a heavy RB guy, hero RB. I do an auction draft with those guys, and I spend way too much money on running backs every year, which is why I have not won since 2016. But that's besides the point. Wide receiver, though, this year I feel really good about a lot of these guys, but they all have question marks, right? CD Lamb, he's not even at training camp. Tyreek Hill, I feel the best about, even though I don't have him as my wide receiver 1 overall. But then Justin Jefferson, the quarterback, Jamar Chase, holding in Joe Burrow's wrist. He's not going to throw any more than 3 days in a row at practice. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I feel great about as well. But, if you have the 2nd, 3rd overall pick, it's tough because you got to get your guy. You can't help where you're picking. And if that is your guy, you got to use that pick to get him, even though consensus may say it's the wrong pick to take him that early. And that's like the guy with A.J. Brown. There's better picks there. But if you love A.J. Brown, and I'm an Eagles fan, you got to take him where you got to take him. But overall, the floor is just higher in PPR leagues with these wide receivers. They're all special talents. They're all statistically going to finish better, you would think, than these running backs. The guy I want to talk about here real quick, though, is Christian McCaffrey. I'm a diehard Christian McCaffrey fan. I don't know where. I think it's right there. I have his rookie card right above me here. 417 touches into mid-November or February this past season. Career high in touches, latest he's ever played. I'm a little nervous. The last time he eclipsed 400 touches was that historic 2019 season. Over 1,000 rushing, over 1,000 receiving, played 3 games the following year. Now, I'm not going to say that Christian McCaffrey is going to get hurt. Obviously, we don't want that, but it's a lot of wear and tear on a running back that's getting up there in age, has a lot of touches to his name. Using the 1st overall pick on him, not something I'm doing. So if I have the 2nd overall pick and he goes first, I actually feel like I have the 1st overall pick because I'm going to take a CD Lamb or a Tyreek Hill.
Actually, it's funny. My friends, they wanted to do a they wanted to do a draft, not a draft, but like an order where you pick your team, like kind of like Derby style, like you pick where you draft the thing. And they were like, well, what picks actually have won over the years? And I said, well, let me look. I have a history of all, obviously from whatever app we use there, like, with the champion, what position were they? And then I think it was since 2015, the positions I've never won are the 101, 108, and 109. I've never won the championship. So the 101 has never won. So if you have I was like, guys, if you have the 101, guess what I did, guys? I took the 101 this year. So I'm not going to win our league. But it just seems like, whoever the top pick 9 times out of 10, something happens to them. They get hurt. CMC's got a lot. The Madden curse, the top running back last year, the workload, I get it, Colin. It's tough to want to have that 101 spot this year.
You never want to be great. You never want to be 1 year late on a guy. And I think a lot of people went into Christian McCaffrey last year. Obviously he's on the 49ers full season, but they have so many weapons there. And, got goo guys for Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. And obviously things didn't go well for those guys for, a lot of different reasons. So Christian McCaffrey obviously prevailed. And that's probably why last year I would say the 102 or 103 in your league probably won, getting Christian McCaffrey. But this year, I'm just a little nervous. If I have him on a dynasty roster, I'm not selling high. I'm not getting rid of Christian McCaffrey. You have him. But as far as building a roster around him, I just feel a lot better about the wide receivers this year.
That's fair. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about round one here? Is there a position you like? Is there players you like or dislike to kind of avoid in round one?
Yeah, no, definitely. I am wide receiver over running back. I feel like there's a lot more consistent hitters with this wide receiver group. CeeDee Lamb last year obviously just set the league on fire. Tyreek Hill, 9 times out of 10, he's going to put up, 18, 20 points for you. Justin Jefferson, even without Kirk Cousins last year, even battling his own injuries, was still putting up 18 fantasy points again. He still looked like Justin Jefferson. He was still doing his thing. So I'm not overly scared of J.J. McCarthy. Haven't seen a ton of video on him from camp, so a little concerned about that. But, Jamar Chase, he's not going to be the most consistent, but he's still one of the few guys on this list that's going to be able to put up a 35-point week and not be outstandingly shocking. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's my guy in the first round. I've talked before. I just love consistency, and he's about as consistent as it comes, especially at the wide receiver position. And I think Detroit plays in a dome or at home 12, 14 games of the fantasy season this year. So Jared Goff's going to go crazy. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be the immediate beneficiary of that. And then A.J. Brown, we saw a little fluctuation last year with him, but he's still the number one target for the Eagles. The running backs, they're laced in kind of where I would have them. CMC, I'd probably put him below those first 2 receivers at least, and then CMC Brees right there. I'd throw Justin Jefferson around depending on how I was really building my team. But, yeah, it all really depends on your spot and where you're picking. Because if I can go in, the 109 and I go get a Jonathan Taylor, and then I can flip right around and get one of these early second-round wide receivers, I'm not upset about how that team's being built, especially if the bulk of these wide receivers, which most of the time they will be, are off the board.
No, right. And I think with shit, I'm going too fast on this, guys. In round one here, I think that wide receiver this year is again continuing to be your best bet here. Personally, if you're in a situation where you can get one of these top 6 wide receivers at any point, you should feel pretty confident in yourself that you have a stability at wide receiver that has upside. Each one of these players has elite upside here. The running backs, yeah, sure. The guys on the CMC, Hall, and Robinson, they all have elite upside, but there always seems to be something with these running backs this year that there's a question mark on them. It's not. I feel like in years past, at times where the running backs were you have a steady guy. He's gonna get 300 plus touches this year. You shouldn't have to really worry about him, but there's still a mystery how they're going to use Bijan this year compared to last year. Is Brees Hall really back? Does Aaron Rodgers really have make this team that much better that Hall is thriving? The same thing we kind of talked about And then the running backs at the back end, you look at Jonathan Taylor, like, is he going to bounce back? He looked kind of good at times last year, but does he lose the touchdowns to Richardson? Is Saquon really going to thrive with the Eagles? I mean, that's the goal. That's what we're looking for. And then is Jahmyr Gibbs going to take another step, or is the Dave Montgomery going to continue to steal goal line carries, which I think Gibbs might have said already. He knows that he's going to lose goal line touches to Dave Montgomery in this offense here. So, I think wide receiver is your best bet. I mean, if you do go hero running back, I think I would wait till round 2 and take one of the guys we'll talk about here in a few minutes and go with one of these wide receivers and then get your high-end RB and go in that situation. But round 1 should be pretty good. I think if you're between 4 and 7, you should be pretty happy this year in this draft. I think there's a lot of talent where if you get kind of whoever's left kind of thing, and you should be pretty thrilled with that. So, all right. Let's go over to round 2 here. Picks 13 to 24. You have Puka, Garrett Wilson, Kerryon Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Adams, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry. You got a quarterback with Josh Allen, Drake London, Devon Achane, Chris Olave, and Josh Jacobs. So let's start here at the top, guys, with Puka Nacua. Obviously an injury came out about him over the weekend here. Knee injury. He is week to week. What does this do, guys, for you for Puka Nacua? Is he still pretty solid round 2 pick here, or are you guys starting to get a little concerned? Because Cooper Kupp's doing well. I'm hearing a lot of great things about Cooper Kupp.
I love the Rams. They're a team that I've been waiting for their downfall, not, maliciously or anything, but, teams go to the Super Bowl and then they seem to fizzle off. And that's not been the Rams. They've, been competitive. They were in the playoffs last year. They surprised a lot of people. And that's what happens when you have a good GM there. Like Les Snead, that hits on a guy like Puka Nacua. I've actually seen him, Garrett Wilson. I don't think anyone else here. Sometimes Devon Achane. We'll get to him in a second, I'm sure. But go into the first round. And I can't fault anyone for taking any of those guys in the first round. Again, you got to get your guy, especially if you have like pick 10 and you like Puka or Garrett Wilson, and you have another pick and 2-3 more picks from then. Get that guy first, and then, there's going to be a good player on the wraparound. I can't imagine anyone starting a fantasy draft in 2024 with RB. It just doesn't – there's just too many good wide receivers here, just even looking at this list. But I do think it tapers off, though. I don't feel 100% about Drake London or Chris Olave being my team's wide receiver 1 for 2024. So, if you're drafting them in round 2 – I would hope that they are your wide receiver 2. And I've done that a couple times here and there. I'm hoping those guys drop to round 3. I'd feel a lot better about it. But it's interesting. You got to know your league. You got to know who you're drafting with. You can't really be surprised by any of these guys. Kyron Williams has a couple question marks as well with his size. Blake Corum, Travis Etienne, the Jags have been extremely disappointing. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a rookie, but I love him and his expected target share with Kyler Murray. Devontae Adams, quarterback concerns there. Derrick Henry, he's getting up there in age. There's a lot of question marks in round 2. I actually hate this round because I feel like I'm going to mess it up. But if we're all messing it up, whatever, we're good. So you really want to have a good plan going into round 1, looking at that list. I don't think you can really go wrong with any of the players we just talked about. You got to figure out which one of these guys you feel the best about. But don't be afraid, when we flip the slide here, to maybe bump up the guys you see in round 3 over some of these back-end guys, over Josh Jacobs, over Chris Olave, and let someone else, take those problems off your hand.
Absolutely. Coach Tyler, over to you.
Yeah, the Puka injury, for those that are in it, the fancy coaches, the challenge, I had what pick did I have? I had the 10th overall pick, and I went out and got Puka Nacua. And then about 6 hours later, I get the alert that he had an injury. So, not overly exciting having taken him that quickly. But I'm not overly concerned with it. Again, it's still early. We're still 5 weeks, 4 Sundays, 5 weeks out from the start of the season. Guys are going to get nicked up. They're getting back into, contact. They're getting back into actual football shape, not just running around in the summer for their Instagram videos. So there's going to be, bumps and bruises, and sometimes it's going to happen to star guys. But I think Puka's going to be fine. Obviously, a healthy Cooper Kupp is going to be different for Puka. It's not going to – they're not going to have to rely on him as much to be the offense, and they're not going to have to really hyper-target him as much. But at the same time, he's demonstrated such a ability to go out in the open field and sit down in zones and go win downfield. And so I think that Puka's value is going to be fine. I don't think the injury is going to be anything really major. In regards to the second round as a whole, really just kind of repeating what Colin said. You can't mess it up if everyone's messing it up, right? And this is where understanding your draft position matters so much, because if you go into round one and you don't know really kind of where your heart is, you don't know what position you're taking, you're going to get into round two and panic. You're going to get into round two and be like, oh crap, I don't know if I really like these guys, but who's in between me and when I pick into third, and who would take someone here? Like, there's a whole strategy to it, and that's why we talk about things like this. And so understanding your draft position and how you want to build your team makes all the difference going into rounds 2 and 3 and 4, and really even round 1, because that's where the nucleus of your team is going to be. That's where you're investing the most capital. So you really want to hit on those picks, because usually when you hit on those first 4 rounds, you're setting yourself up for a lot of success later on down the line in the season. Really the one guy that I am shying away from still, talked about him a lot this offseason, Chris Olave. Between our last show and this one, saw a clip of him. He was getting interviewed by like NBC Sports or something. And the reporter asked, has there been like any play during camp or anything that's happened that you're just like, man, this team is special? And he just sits there and laughs for a second, and he goes, no, not really. And just the fact that internally the Saints aren't exciting, it makes me feel better about my feeling that the Saints aren't exciting to me. So really, I'm shying away from Chris Olave, especially like Colin said, if he's your wide receiver 1, really just wait till round 3. At that point, take one of these running backs and get some hero RB going. But yeah, again, this is a round that's dominated by a receiver. Couple question marks, but at the same time, if you hit on any of these receivers, you're setting yourself up extremely well, especially if these guys are coming in as your wide receiver 2. If I'm getting Garrett Wilson coming in with a healthy Aaron Rodgers as my wide receiver 2 and he hits. If Marvin Harrison has the best rookie season of a receiver ever, he hits, I'm happy. If Drake London is really all he's advertised to be with Kirk Cousins and he hits, I'm happy. So understand where you're going in these first couple rounds, and then kind of play the board as it falls to you later on.
That's exactly what it feels like, though. Is it feels like we're just everyone on this list, we're projecting like, yeah, I could see him doing this. I could see him doing that. Even Josh Allen, like I could see him surviving a Stephon Diggs-less Buffalo Bills team. It's really just who do you feel the best gambling with? Because even Chris Olave is the best player on arguably the worst offense in the NFL right now. It really does feel like we're playing with fire here. But, the guys that you should feel the best about are at the top of this list: Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, even Marvin Harrison Jr. So, again, if you're in the back end of the second round, I think you can look at some of these round 3 guys we're going to talk about and justify reaching for them, even though your league might, laugh at you. When things go south for some of these guys on this list, and they will, you'll be laughing last.
Yeah. Now, the people who, like I said, I continue to say that people who pick at that like 6-7 range, you're getting, I think, great value. You're getting either a good wide receiver, and like this is the draft wire. You kind of want to go wide receiver somewhat early, because we'll talk about it, but the running backs later compared to the wide receivers later, it kind of leans for me to personally more towards the running back situation. So getting your wide receivers earlier, don't be mad with that. If you go 0 RB early on, like don't be mad, because I think you could work that out very well this year, where you're getting Amon-Ra St. Brown and Devontae Adams this year as your starting 2 wide receivers. Like, you should not be mad at that at all. You should be pretty happy. And what Colin said, that back half of round 2 here with the Drake, A-Chain, Olave, and Jacobs, A lot of question marks back there. And the guys we're going to talk about here in round 3, they're probably going to get pushed up in a lot of leagues. Again, this is just an average of everyone's league here. It's not a ranking or anything like that. This is just what everyone's drafting them right now. But you can get really good value in round 3 and push these guys down to round 3, and then they're considered better value at that point. So speaking of round 3, let's get into that now. Round 3, we have pick 25 to 36 here. Isaiah Pacheco, Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, some tight ends off the board. Debo Samuels, Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, Mike Evans, more quarterbacks, and Jalen Hurts, Pat Mahomes, Rashard White, Jalen Waddle, and Michael Pittman Jr. here. So Tyler, I'll let you go first on this one here. We'll switch it up here. What do you like about this round here? Is there a player that you're targeting in this area?
Yeah. I just continue to like the wide receivers. It just seems like the value keeps pouring in and pouring in. We do have Brandon Ayuk, somewhat news coming from Mike Garofalo and Tom Pelissero. Apparently from them, it's more likely that he is going to be traded than sign an extension with the 49ers, but there's still no trade in place. So if he gets traded, that's presumably, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number ones and a number 2 on their team target-wise. In terms of the wide receiver, if I'm getting this around 3, I'm ecstatic, right? I love the fact that I can go out and get a Debo Samuel, who the 49ers are going to overuse. Brandon Ayuk, who every rumor has been that he's going to Washington. I would put him as the wide receiver 1 there if he ends up in Washington. Nico, y'all know he's my take for the Texans wide receiver 1. Mike Evans, obviously the 1 there. Michael Pittman, obviously the 1. Jalen Waddle, 1B. But
I'll take it.
If I can get all of these guys in the 3rd round, and I can end up with, if I can go first round and go Bijan and then end up wide receiver rounds 2 and 3, I've got a stud running back that I can run with. And then I've got 2 1s at the wide receiver position rounds 2 and 3. I'm not setting myself up bad. The running backs, I'm kind of on in round 3. Just Pacheco and Rashad White, just with the value that's around them, even just getting, the positional advantage of a Laporta or a Kelce at tight end on top of the value of the receivers. I just feel like running back isn't the spot to go here unless it's just, end of the 3rd round and one of them ends up in your lap. But I really just the wide receiver value for this year, at least for these first, 4 or 5 rounds, is so oversaturated that it really makes it hard for me to look at running backs for the first, 4 or 5 rounds.
Yeah, no, I get that a lot there. Colin, how about you? How do you feel about this round?
Yeah, I feel really comfortable with all of the wide receivers here because we've seen it before. Even Michael Pittman last year, not with Anthony Richardson, with Gardner Minshew. We saw it. We finally saw it. And it makes me laugh, going back to round 2, Drake London feels like, and I told you so, wide receiver. We're all projecting to do well with Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. We have no idea how that is going to go. But last year, I know Michael Pittman was like a 5th, 6th round pick, and a lot of people were saying, see, I told you so. This guy's special. Are we going to get that with Drake London this year? We might, but are you willing to bet your 2nd round pick on it? I don't know. I'd much rather take some of these wide receivers here. Mike Evans, 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons. The league or the record holder for most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons is Jerry Rice, and he had 11. You don't think Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield and the entire Tampa Bay Bucs organization knows that? Of course they're going to feed that dude. It's going to be really interesting here with Debo and Brandon Ayuk. If, like Tyler said, if Brandon Ayuk does go on the move, I'd bump up Debo a little. I feel better about Christian McCaffrey. I'd bump up Kittle. He's going really late this year. And then, Ricky Pearsall becomes an interesting pick here. Jalen Waddle I thought was a little disappointing last year, but that's because Tyreek Hill is so freaking amazing. I think what's really interesting here through 3 rounds, 36 picks, as we've seen based on this, is 3 quarterbacks go. With every quarterback that comes off the board, this early on, I'm less likely to take one in a 1 QB league. Because now if you're playing in a 12-team league, 3 managers now have their quarterbacks. And, that means 9 managers need a quarterback. And I can still think of 9 quarterbacks I really, really like. It could be fool's gold with the Jordan Loves of the world, even the Brock Purdy's. But there's still a lot of names out there, even the rookies, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, that I like later, Justin Herbert, who we talked about early. So I like to see the quarterbacks going early here. I'm not fading them per se, but I'm not willing to spend this high of a pick personally on them. I think round 4 is the earliest I would take a quarterback this year. So let people zag and take these quarterbacks here, even the tight ends. There's definitely a tier break at tight end. I think there's 6-7 tight ends I feel really, really good about this year. Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce are 2 of them. So keeping an eye on it. I'm not stressing if I don't get either of those guys. I still feel good about a handful of them. But, when other people start to, target the quarterbacks and tight ends, I'm sticking with the running backs and the wide receivers here specifically. I really do like Isaiah Pacheco this year. No one really talks about him because Patrick Mahomes is so good and that passing game has been so good, but that passing game wasn't very good last year. It was actually kind of a down year for Mahomes, QB 13 on a points per game basis. So at the end of the day, Isaiah Pacheco is the starting running back on the Kansas City Chiefs and doesn't really have any competition for touches back there. So if you do go wide receiver, I actually like taking Pacheco here a lot more than a guy like Rachaad White, and actually more than a Josh Jacobs and some of those other guys at the back end of round 2. So I do like that pick here.
No, round three is like almost a no miss situation for the most part there, besides maybe Rachaad White for me personally. Like, you should be pretty happy if you got any of these players on your team, whether or not even you can take the quarterbacks in round 3. Again, like Colin, I think if one of them falls around 4 and it's right where I'm picking, I might take a shot at them at that point. But again, you're getting good value on the quarterbacks in just a general sense. The tight ends for me personally, like I've been doing all these charity leagues, and I get a little more like loosey goosey with my picks. But like, taking Travis Kelce in the middle end of round 2, like, he's still an elite tight end. Like, he showed us in the playoffs that he can still be an elite player, and like, we're not taking him at his ceiling anymore, where he's a round 1 pick, and you're getting good value at tight end. Like, Travis Kelce is still someone I'm targeting late round 2, early round 3, and I'm rolling with it because I still believe that even at his age, he can still put up an elite season and be a difference maker among all these other players.
Not a single tight end averaged more than 15 points, or not even 15 points per game last year. Yeah, so I actually think these guys are more appropriately priced heading into 2024. If you took Kelce in round 1 last year, I'm sorry that burned you a little bit. But
you waited too long.
Yeah, well, when you stack these guys up against the Debos and the Ayuks and even the Nico Collins here, they're all going to score pretty much about the same points per game. So, if you didn't get maybe the wide receiver you wanted, or you went running back in round 2 and you need a pass catcher in round 3, I actually don't mind taking a tight end here. But you better know which one you prefer, because it's a tougher decision than usual.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get over to round 4 here. Round 4, we have pick 37 to 48. Stephon Diggs, Lamar Jackson, DK Metcalf, James Cook, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, Joe Mixon, CJ Stroud, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara, Devonta Smith, and Treylon Burks. And I did these like a week ago, and I obviously made sure I've updated them throughout the time so they're not like outdated. But this round here, round 4, I had so much turnaround here. It was insane. There were so many players coming in and out of round 4. But Colin, I'll start with you here. How do you like round 4 here? Are there players you really like? Are there players you kind of prefer not to avoid in this round?
Yeah, I mean, again, you got them color coded here. Those quarterbacks are sticking out to me again. I love Lamar Jackson here. If you didn't grab a running back yet, because you're gonna get the rushing points from Lamar Jackson, and you can kind of hedge fading a running back here, because kind of prefer him over some of these guys. As special as Alvin Kamara is and continues to be, man, that Saints offense is just one that I'm not interested in at all this year. Mixon, I really, really like this year. Going out and trading for him before he got released shows there's an obvious interest there. Moving on from Devin Singletary, who was quite good last year for the Houston Texans, and then ripping up his contract and paying him. I think Joe Mixon is going to, flirt with double-digit touchdowns this year. Could actually, if the Houston Texans offense is as good as we expect it to be, and I'm sure Tyler expects it to be, this is a guy that could push for like 15 touchdowns realistically. if they get close to the goal line. But yeah, I mean, this is an interesting tier. I like a lot of these interesting round, I should say. I like a lot of these wide receivers though. DK Metcalf has just been downward trajectory ever since his rookie season, really. So that's a guy that's, appropriately priced here, I think, as well. If you went wide receiver, running back, or you have two wideouts at this point, I think all of these guys in this round are really, really solid wide receiver threes for any roster. Metcalf, Kupp, DJ Moore, Devontae Smith. Some of them are perceived, even Diggs, some of them perceived as the wide receiver 2 on their team, but I would take these guys over the wide receiver 1 on a lot of other teams, like the Green Bay Packers, who could be a little bit of a headache this year as who's going to be good week to week. So I really like the wide receivers here. I feel like we're all a broken record at this point. Wide receiver is deep. If you didn't know yet, wide receiver is very, very deep this year. But I think it all comes down to how you're building your roster. If you don't have a running back at this point, you went 3 straight wideouts. Yeah, James Cook was really, really good last year when they made an offensive coordinator change. I've already professed my love for Joe Mixon on this Houston Texans offense. Kenneth Walker, I think, is still the guy in that backfield. I think he's the clear-cut RB1 over Charbonnet. And then Alvin Kamara, you can always bank on him, in the receptions total. So it really just depends on how you're building your roster at this point, position of need, if you feel that way. But I don't hate grabbing 4 straight wide receivers and then gobbling up a bunch of running backs later on and hoping for those hits.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, a couple rounds ago, like we're still not even to the point where the running back value is there, and that's why you're getting these wide receivers early on, because there's so much talent here in these first 4 rounds. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about round 4 as a whole?
Yeah, like I said, rounds 1 through 4, it's really hard not to see the wide receiver value. It's just there's so many good wide receivers that can do a lot, and there's obviously question marks associated with. Is Stephon Diggs, did he really lose a step, or were things just tough in Buffalo? Is Puka fully supplanting Cooper Kupp with the Rams? Is JSN going to come on for the Seahawks and push, obviously Tyler Lockett out, but maybe eat into DJ Metcalf a little bit? Is DJ Moore going to be the one? Is Keenan Allen going to be the one in Chicago? Devonta Smith, we just know he's not a one. He plays like it some games, but we know that A.J. Brown is the one in that offense. But still, there's so much value to be had in the fact of, Stephon Diggs, if he's not the Texans' number 1, I think that he's not going to have to stretch the field as much as he did in Buffalo. So it's going to make him a really heavy PPR asset as a wide receiver too. DK Metcalf, that offense is, they just got an offensive coordinator from Washington. If you didn't pay attention at all during the college football season, Washington aired that thing out. And DK Metcalf, being the wide receiver 1 in Seattle, if they come in and do anything similar to what was going on in Washington, he's going to be the immediate beneficiary of it. Cooper Kupp, I've very much spoken on how little I think Kyron Williams is going to be valuable this year. So the Rams are going to need to throw the ball. And I think that Cooper Kupp, obviously, he's going to be battling with Puka. He's not the wide receiver 1 overall like a couple years ago, but still as a wide receiver 2, Stafford's going to get him the ball enough to make him viable as, your wide receiver 2 or even your wide receiver 3 pulling up in a flex spot, right? DJ Moore, they're going to want to throw the ball. They have a shiny new toy in Caleb Williams, and they're not going to go stick him in a garage, right? They're going to run him and let it go. And then the Eagles, Kellen Moore really likes to throw the ball. He's a really good offensive coordinator. And so I don't doubt that Devonta Smith is going to be a guy that makes off well because of that hiring, right? The running backs, I like them. This is where, round 3, I wasn't super high on running back. I'd rather take a round 4.
They feel like good floor plays this year. Like they're just solid floor. They're not maybe have as much upside, but the floor is solid for these guys.
Kamara's really the only one that I would kind of stay away from just because of age, and really his value is solely in his receiving. But also we don't know what the backfield's going to look like there. So
it's a mess.
It's
a mess there.
It is. But this is honestly, again, and even Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, you're getting the reigning MVP in round 4 who has insane rushing ability, or you're getting a quarterback who just finished his rookie season with 4,100 yards and added Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon to that offense. Like, what's the possibilities? What could happen, right? And Trey McBride, obviously, great pick. So, like, round 4, just so much goodness in this round. Like, it's very hard to go wrong. But, again, just know how you're formulating your team, kind of what you're targeting, so you don't overload on one position and hurt yourself later in the draft.
I like what you guys said about this being a floor round, because round 2 very much felt like the ceiling round. And, you know, maybe if you grab a wide receiver in round 2 that you're a little iffy about, Olave, Drake London, you hedge them a little bit with some of these guys here, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, so that if the guy you drafted in round 2 disappoints, you can feel a little bit better about some of these guys, and vice versa with the running backs. You know, you grab Devon Achane and he's disappointing. Well, at least you got the floor play in a Joe Mixon or even a Kenneth Walker here.
Yeah, no, that is a great way to think about it, though. All right, let's get into round 5. Last round of the night, guys. Pick 49 to 60. You have the Mark Andrews, Anthony Richardson, Dalton Kincaid, Amari Cooper, Malik Neighbors, Aaron Jones, T. Higgins, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, Ramondre Stevenson, James Conner, and as of today, Joe Burrow jumps back up into pick 60 because it was Dave Montgomery, but now it's Joe Burrow again. So, Colin, how do you feel about this last round of the night here, round 5 here?
Yeah, we're 5 rounds in, and 7 quarterbacks have potentially come off the board. You know, and with 11 rounds to go, if you do a 16-round draft, that means 5 managers only need a quarterback at this point. So, let them fly. Obviously the gap between the Josh Allen and maybe the QB 8 or QB 9 is could be significant, but you can find a CJ Stroud later on in your draft. You can still get Dak Prescott. I mean, you can get, Justin Herbert, Brock Purdy, even Jared Goff, like Tyler mentioned, could be a guy that you could start your season with. That's a guy I really like, actually, to pair with a rookie this year. But, the more and more I see this, and, if your league is a copycat league and, you get one guy draft a quarterback and start thinking you need one, let people have that, group mentality, and you can grab some of these other players at other positions. Malik Neighbors, it's going to be very interesting to see if he stays in round 5, because I feel like every day, with a cup of coffee, I am seeing a Malik Neighbors highlight from training camp. So, someone could get crazy. If you play in a New York-based home league, forget it. You're not getting Malik Neighbors in round 5. But yeah, there's a lot of different players here that I do like. I like Aaron Jones a lot. James Conner. These are guys that you just at this point in 2024 cannot expect to get 16, 17 games out of. But, as an RB2, even as your RB1, you can figure it out down the road. Get James Conner and then draft Trey Benson higher than maybe you should a little bit later on. Same with Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler. Like, you can figure that out, but these guys are going to get the rock early on in the season. And I love winning fantasy football matchups early on, because you're just going to get better odds to make the playoffs, because bye weeks haven't started, injuries haven't started racking up. So I want to win early and often. And those are guys that I do like taking early. But noticing lastly here, the tight ends, Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, and I still think a little bit Kyle Pitts. Again, we're projecting greatness for him, but that's the tier break for me. So I'm hoping to get one of these tight ends this season. I don't want to hope that Jake Ferguson maintains, a solid floor with Dak Prescott. I don't want to hope that David Njoku figures it out with Deshaun Watson like he did with Joe Flacco last year. Evan Ingram's still very much in the conversation, but I don't want to hope that Brock Bowers comes on as a rookie and is, start worthy every week. So I do like grabbing these tight ends that are potentially number 1 target on their respective teams. Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, even Trey McBride, we could see a special season from him. So I really think round 5, depending on how your league goes, round 6, but that's the sweet spot. I'm hoping to leave it one of these rounds with a tight end for sure.
Sure. I like that. Coach Tyler, finish us up.
Yeah, round 5, I do really like tight end, and I honestly kind of like quarterback. I'm a big Anthony Richardson guy. I don't care if he can throw the ball accurately if he rushes and gets me 15 points just on the ground every game. Then he just has to find a receiver a couple times downfield, and it works. But round 5 is one of those, I don't love the running backs here. Kind of like Colin said, they're going to get the rock early, but I really just don't love Aaron Jones. Ramondre Stevenson and James Conner I'd be fine with as even possibly an RB2. You go out and got 3 receivers and a running back, or you went 2 receiver, 1 running back, and you got a tight end, or even you possibly went quarterback early. Then I'm okay grabbing a Ramondre or James Conner as your RB2. If they're your RB1, I really hope you built a juggernaut of those first 4 rounds, because I'm very interested to see what you get later on as your RB2. But the receivers, this is not where I see kind of the value die, but it starts to kind of siphon out a little bit. Just all these guys have question marks of what's going to happen. Amari Cooper, is he going to figure it out with Deshaun? Malik, he's playing with Daniel Jones. T. Higgins, what does the offense look like minus Tyler Boyd plus Jermaine Burton? They don't have a running back that's necessarily an elite pass catcher like Joe Mixon. Zay Flowers, is he going to take a next step? George Pickens, who is throwing him the ball? And if they are they able to throw it accurately enough for him to, be consistently viable? Like, it's just not as attractive of a wide receiver round. So this is one of those rounds where I'm okay taking, those onesie positions where you've got your quarterbacks or your tight ends. But also, if you pulled one of those earlier, this is a great spot to fill that RB2 with a Ramondre or a James Conner, or if you trust it, an Aaron Jones.
That's fair. Yeah. Now this round's solid. I mean, I feel like you get good value at quarterback and tight end here with Burrow and Richardson. If you waited, like, they're solid quarterbacks. They're really going to be good for your team here. Andrews and Kincaid, that you guys mentioned, like, potentially number 1 target on their team, both elite tight ends. Like, you're getting in round 5 at this point. And if you went and hit every other position before, you're sitting pretty. And then I think the running backs are kind of like more of a risky boomer bust if you go 0 RB here, because there's a lot of upside for some of these guys, but there's also a big downside. And then the receivers, it's kind of pick your poison. Like, who do you like between these grouping here? Like, I like Amari Cooper still. I like T. Higgins still. Like, I'm not a big fan of Zay Flowers in round 5. I think it's a little early, and if George Pickens with a Brandon Ayuk, he could drop him out of the 5th round pretty easily. But we'll have to wait and see. But there's a lot of decent talent here, a lot of upside, a lot of downside here. So, all right, boys, that is going to wrap us up for tonight, guys. We want to thank you guys all for tuning in and listening. Hopefully this was kind of helpful, giving you a little inside source on this first 5 rounds and all the other training camp stuff we talked about. Colin, my friend, great having you on. If there's anything you want to say, anything you guys got going on that you want to give out right now, give you the floor.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just still, building up that draft kit at fantraxhq.com. You can follow me at Colin_MCT on Twitter. I'm always posting my articles there. Specifically, I'll be at the Fantasy Football Expo this week in Canton, Ohio. Flag football tournament. There's going to be drafts. College fantasy football is, taking the world by storm right now. There's going to be some of those drafts there. You can play that on Fantrax, our app. So if you're into college football, and you have the fortune of, sitting your butt on the couch on Saturdays and Sundays, why not create a college fantasy football league? It's a great way to learn the players before they get into the NFL, obviously, as well. So why not? It could even, I've heard this idea tossed around, play a college fantasy football league with your current home league and have the results of the college fantasy football league decide your home league, NFL league order for the following season. So a couple good ideas there if you don't necessarily want to cough up some dough for it, but great way to play, a lot more scoring, a lot more fun. And who doesn't want football all weekend, right? So so catch me on Fantrax, catch me on Twitter. And I appreciate you guys having me tonight.
Absolutely. Coach Tyler, anything you want to say before we get going?
First-hand testimony, have played college fantasy football on Fantrax. It was great. I loved it. Obviously, go follow me on X, on Twitter, at @FF_TJ Hernandez. Go check out Dynasty Nerds, Coach Steve has been grinding out a ton of work, ton of team previews, getting y'all ready for the season. We got a lot of stuff over there to get y'all ready as we are finally in football month.
Yes, we are. It's the best month of the year, besides September, obviously. But yeah, guys, we appreciate you guys all for tuning in. As always, guys, whether you're listening live on our YouTube channel or if you're listening afterwards on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, we obviously very much appreciate it. Again, we're just here to help you guys win some championships by giving you guys quick, straight up analysis here. So we'll be back next Monday. We're going to get into more of the middle rounds and how you can kind of win those rounds and what players kind of target in that range. But until then, guys, thank you guys all for listening. Tune in until next time, all. Have a good one.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of Clark hands. I've been feeling